Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to my continued Star Trek reviews. And today's review is for the 1994 Star Trek film Star Trek Generations, a film that was directed by David Carson, and this was the first of 4 films that starred the Next Generation crew, although there is an appearance here by some of the original crew, mainly Kirk, Chekhov and Scotty. This film essentially focuses on, like I said, the Next Generation crew who have to try and stop Malcolm McDowell's character, who is the evil Dr. Soran, who wants to get back to something called the Nexus, that is described as pure joy, and he is unwittingly rescued from this Nexus by Kirk and an Enterprise many years previously, and he is now in the future and he's trying to get back to this Nexus, and it is up to the crew of the Next Generation Enterprise to stop him doing this, because he is willing to kill many millions of innocent people to be able to do this. So that is essentially the main plot here of this film, Star Trek Generations. Now, this film was widely anticipated by many. We all knew that Star Trek The Undiscovered Country was the end of the original crew's journey, but there was a crossover here that everybody was excited to see. Mainly Kirk and Picard were on together on screen, which they managed to pretty much mess up here in this film, but they did get some bits right. And this, a bit of a mixed start for the Next Generation crew. I don't think this is a bad film. I think there are elements to it that really are fun and do work. Mainly, I think if you went into this film, you didn't really follow the Next Generation or anything like that, I think this film does a decent job of introducing you to the new characters, and it kind of gave you no illusions as to who these characters were. You know very quickly who Picard is, and Riker, and Worf, and all these different characters. You know their roles fairly quickly and early on into the film, so it does a pretty decent job of introducing them. We have a good villain here with Malcolm McDowell, who I'm a big fan of. I think he's a great actor, and I think he puts in a decent turn as Dr. Soran, apart from his awful he has an awful line, it has to say, about 3/4 of the way through the film, where he basically says to Picard, I have a date with eternity and I don't want to be late. And it's one of the cringiest lines you'll ever hear, certainly in a Star Trek film. But apart from that, I think he does a pretty decent job as playing the villain here, who is literally willing to kill millions of people for his own means to get back into this Nexus, which kind of shows you the kind of person he actually is. I do think there are some grossly underused characters here in this film, mainly Whoopi Goldberg, who is here as Guinan, who was quite a regular on the Next Generation TV show. She was a big Star Trek fan, and she's really just in this film for exposition, really. And that's it. I think she's terribly underused, and at the time she was pretty much at the peak of her fame in 1994. She'd won the Oscar for Ghost and things like that, so she was a very popular actress at this time, and I think they could have used her better than they did in the film. And Geordi as well, Geordi LaForge, I mean, he's abducted in the film and not really given much else to do, and he's supposed to be like the chief engineer, and he does nothing. I mean, there's a scene in the film where, I mean, there's a lot wrong with this sequence and this scene in the film where Enterprise goes up against the Klingon bird of prey, and the Klingon bird of prey managed to penetrate their shields, and I'm not going to go into how, but they do, and takes a real batter in the Enterprise, which it doesn't work on a few levels. Okay, I mean, Geordi's there, he's a chief engineer, and he doesn't do anything, and there's a warp leak, all sorts of things go wrong, and he basically just screams and shouts and says there's nothing we can do. Scotty would have found a way, do you know what I mean? And the problem as well with that scene is, you know, it makes the Enterprise, this huge Galaxy-class starship, to be really flimsy, and it gets taken out by this bird of prey far too easily for my liking. So I think it was almost like, okay, we're gonna really give the audience this, you know, exciting scene. We're going to separate the saucer, which they used to do semi-regular on the TV show. We're going to showcase this off with some great effects, and then we're going to crash land it here and do this and do that. And it just felt a bit cheap. Maybe in the second or the third film they could have maybe done something like that with the Enterprise, but in the first film it was almost like, no, we're gonna destroy this Enterprise. So yeah, I mean, there were things like that didn't work, and also what they did with Data in this film, they kind of turned him into the comedy sidekick in this film. He puts like this emotion chip in, and he spends most of the film just laughing and giggling and being like the comedy sidekick, and I think it would have given viewers that didn't know an awful lot about these characters an unbalanced view of who Data is, if you didn't know him much from the TV show. So I wasn't overly pleased with what they did with Data's character in this film either. I did think there was some great chemistry between Picard and Kirk. They weren't on screen enough together, and let's be brutally honest here, they completely and utterly ruined Kirk's spoilers here, guys, if you haven't seen this film. Kirk's death. Yes, he dies in this film, well, twice really. At the beginning of the film, you think he's dead, but he's not. He's in the Nexus, and then Picard finds him, brings him back out of the Nexus, and he gets killed again. But I mean, it's just not a particular. I mean, Kirk, if he's going to die, he needs to die. He should have died with his crew, his shipmates around him, and his friends around him. The way they killed off Kirk, I thought, was very, very unsatisfying. So we've got a pretty unbalanced film, but there is some good stuff in here. Like I say, you get a space battle, it's okay. You get some good introductions to the characters, a few phaser battles here and there, and showcase of the holodeck and the observation lounge, all this kind of stuff. So they do the best to introduce us to the Next Generation crew and ship, etc. But it's a fairly unbalanced film, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. It's not a terrible Star Trek film. It's certainly, there are aspects of it that are very, very watchable, and it does lead on to one of the best Star Trek films, whether it be the original crew or the Next Generation crew, which is Star Trek First Contact, which is what I will be reviewing next. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please click the like button, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching.